girls who took notes using 50 different colored pens. Where are you now? Do you still continue to write using all those colors? Story 1. There's a PM in my company that does this. No idea how she has the focus and time to take such detailed Technicolor dream notes during meetings, but I've never had a problem with getting any relevant info from her. So gotta respect note-taking game like that. Story 2. My grade 9 science teacher forced us all to do it. He said that by color coding everything, you understood the material better because you had to think about it longer to color code it and understand what other things it was associated with, not just zone out and go into transcribing mode. He also made us do end-of-unit study guides. They had to be color-coded, a set amount of drawings, and unit words and definitions. The drawings were doodles based on things in the unit. He would mark them and hand them back before the test, which was great because he knew if he needed to help us with something before we bombed the test. He was also an MMA fighter with cauliflower ears, and not the type of guy you would expect to demand rainbow-colored notes. Edit, there's a lot of people asking for examples, so he'll make one up this afternoon. Story 3. I'm a medical lab technician. I took notes with a million different colored pens in college. Up until 2 years ago, I graduated at age 41. Just bought myself a nice new set of gel pens. Real talk, multiple colors really helped me categorize and compress complex ideas into things I could remember. It helped a lot in understanding the material and studying for tests. Story 4. I used different ink and highlighter colors to compensate for terrible ADD. I work in a chemistry lab now. Sometimes I'll still use brightly colored pens to record my results for fun, but I don't ever switch between colors, color code, anything anymore. All the different colored ink highlighting helped me remember my notes come exam time. So now that I'm out of college, I don't need to switch between colors. I low-key miss color coding and taking notes sometimes, though. Story 5. I still color code based on class. Each class has a color. This color includes the folder color, the pen color, the sticky note color that the assignments are written on and placed in my planner on the date they're due. I also teach intro statistics to undergraduates, where I also color code parts of the equations and the values that get inserted to the equation, so the student can see where the numbers come from more easily. Edited to change kids to students. That was a poor word choice on my part. Apologies. Story 6. My wife did this when we were in school, and she still loves using multicolored pens for everything she can. She even uses her own pretty colors for writing in the labels for things at work. You can always tell work that was done by her from everyone else's. A true ray of sunshine. Edit, I told my wife about all the upvotes on this comment, and she is thrilled about all the attention. Edit 2/127. 7 p.m. Thank you so much to both of the kind strangers who awarded this comment. Never thought it would blow up so much. The wife is happy. Story 7. I work in an office setting now and do still like to use different colored pens for things, if the situation allows it. I don't know if this will make sense to anyone else, but I love colors. I especially like the idea of colors being associated with ideas, personalities, names, or themes. Oh, today is Monday. I think orange is a good Monday color. Pink is Friday. Green is Wednesday. I love how Windows 10 allows me to change the colors of tile so that my computer seems more like me. I am constantly changing the colors of my Apple Watch face. I don't know. I think I have a problem. ETA, the thoughts and discussions being shared here have been very interesting and eye-opening. Thanks for the silver as well. I do just want to add that I'm fairly certain I do not have synesthesia. I know someone that does, and from my very limited knowledge of it, it isn't a voluntary association of colors like mine probably would be. I always automatically like to associate stuff with color or mood, but I don't know that it happens involuntarily. Think of what I do as more of what happens in the video game Persona 5, where each character has a color associated with them intentionally. I love that kind of stuff. Story 8. I have a few friends that do that. One of them is studying to be a doctor, move the colored pens to a tablet to easily switch colors. Another wants to become a sign language translator, keep forgetting the actual term. Story 9. I'm a high school English teacher, and there's a big correlation between note-taking skills and success in my classes. Color coding notes definitely helps. Story 10. A guy classmate of mine did this. One of the smartest in the class. His notes were fantastic. He's an engineer now and has a great family life from what I see on his FB. Cool guy. Jason, if you're reading this, you rock, my dude. Story 11. I actually am now a professional scientist, and it makes my lab notebook pretty. Plus, frankly, often it's really helpful to have multiple colors. I also like having a bunch of colors for seminar speakers because it somehow keeps me more interested to choose a different color for a different speaker. Honestly, though, the core reason is the main reason I enjoy multiple colors is because I often feel the secret to success against procrastination is negotiating with your inner 5-year-old. Okay, you need to write these notes, but if you do, you can choose what color to write them in. You might as well find a little happiness in the world where you can Story 12, edit slow down. If you want a copy, message me. Edit too, I'm sorry if I don't get to everyone. There's a lot you guys asking. Hope you understand. Have a nice day. I color-coded my notes. I have OCD, and it makes everything feel neater and easier to flick through. If you want, it'll give my system as I found it to be very useful. Maybe you will too. Oh, and I'm currently unemployed, but due to the recent birth of my son, James, I've been looking into jobs. Or an alternative way, I use black for titles and subtitles, as for me, the title isn't that important. The dates are written in a subtle color because the focus should be on the stuff below. I'm not focusing on the title, more on the definitions, keywords, diagrams, instructions, etc. Blue is the most used, as that's usually what I use for simple stuff. Red is used for diagrams, definitions, and instructions, and research shows that red helps with more detailed information than blue. Also, red is cool. I highlight keywords in pastel pink because it looks pretty with blue, and highlight in pastel orange because fire, and as for the summary, I write in gray with a black border. It's a lot, but I'm mainly just focused on aesthetic more than anything. Story 13, I'm one of those girls currently in college. I don't do it because I'm organized or anything. I just love buying pens, markers, and otherwise I can't pay attention to my notes. It's aesthetically appealing to me, which immensely helps encourage me to actually take notes. Story 14, I paint for a living, so I switch from pens to paint. The gel pens were fun but impractical. I stick to basic in colors because it's easier to read things with a strong contrast, but I have Sharpies in every color because doodling is fun. Story 15, this reminds me of a girl in one of my college classes. It would be inaccurate to say she took notes. She took transcripts. She would write down everything in class, everything the teacher said, every quote from the book that we read. Even every rabbit trail the class went down. She'd be taking meticulous notes, including asking students for their first and last name, so she could attribute the quotes properly. Our midterm exam was a 10-page paper. She spent 30 hours on hers and got a 97. I spent 2 hours on mine and got a 93. I was much happier trading that 4 of my grade for 28 hours of my life. Story 16, I went from being in school to be a grade school art teacher, to stay at home homeschooling mom, to now finishing up a graduate degree in computer science and have a job lined up as a software developer. And yes, I still use all those colors in Elflord and VM because colors, and it's the easiest for me to read. Story 17, I mostly write everything in purple now, but sometimes I use other colors and I like colorful post-it notes. I am working towards being a kindergarten teacher. Story 18, I'm an engineer with dyslexia and ADHD. I took notes with tons of colors and still do now. The colors help me stay organized, keep track of numbers, and not mix up information. I keep with categorically and have a whole notation system. A friend recommended I try in college, and it helped me go from CS to B and as. I'm good at picturing notes, and the colors help to guide my brain to the relevant information in my memory picture. If that makes sense, in all one color, it just looked like a jumbled mess. Either way, yes, I still use colored pens as a 30-year-old adult engineer. Story 19, I don't write much anymore, but I still use colored pens for my personal notes. The color depends on my mood. When I used to keep a meticulous fitness agenda, everything was color-coded. Story 20, ended up in med school, so not doing bad, I guess. I do still continue color coding everything in college as I did in high school and before. My case of synesthesia lets me see words, letters, and certain concepts in different colors. By using the same colors to actually write the words or underline them, I solidify the memory links in my brain, and it helps me remember things. I also take graphic notes with arrows, double lines, or write in groups of small areas, etc., so that I can clearly categorize things I need to remember. If you're a visual learner, this helps a lot. Story 21, I'm a dramatic artist, and I used all the pens just for that. My teachers hated me for giving them rainbows of notes and work, but I always wrote them a little key on the back of the paper, so they grudgingly accepted it, except one math teacher who liked and looked forward to my stuff. I'm now a dog boarder, and my schedules are so colorful only I can decipher them. I still art, but not as much, unfortunately. Story 22, my girlfriend was one of those girls nowadays. She only uses one color to take notes, but she leaves dozens upon dozens of color-coded tags in every book that she reads, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. Those are all indexed according to an arcane system that the likes of mortal men may not comprehend. Although if you should unwarily run your thumb along that rainbow of plastic, the resulting sound will resemble that of a dark, eldritch chant. I should pause for a moment here to offer a disclaimer. This woman's personality has always been very, very different from that of the girls who simply wanted their notes to look pretty. While she definitely cares about aesthetics and has a great eye for them, her color-based note-taking system is actually meant as a method of organization. Put another way, if she had been a horse girl, It would have been because Shed needed a vehicle that would run on oats. If Shed been a volleyball girl, it would have been because she had figured out a sports-based method of conquering the planet. Anyway, as for where she is now, well, the truth sounds like an exaggeration. She grew up to become one of the most stunningly beautiful women on the planet, coming into her own at around the same time that she was getting her doctorate degree in hard science. Following that, she decided that she needed more of a challenge. So she became a financial analyst at one of the most successful investment management firms on the planet. She attributes her personal success to how much she reads. And I've already described her reading process. TLDR, my girlfriend takes colorful notes. She's trying to conquer the world. Story 23 is a guy who has been doing this for almost 7 years of uni now. I can say that it's absolutely worth it. Pleasant-looking and well-organized notes go a long way to make reviewing material 100 times more enjoyable. Story 24, I knew a guy who would take color-coded notes in class, then immediately after class go through them, and then do even more advanced color coding with added references and stuff. He was probably the hardest working and smartest guy I've ever known, and he grew up in a small village in Venezuela, and now is a U.S. citizen and officer in the Navy. Made me embarrassed that he is a better speaker in 2 languages than I am in one. Story 25, it's my time to shine. I really sucked at taking notes. I failed out of 7th grade. I scraped by in high school. I got into the lowest tier university in the state only because they automatically accepted anyone with an ACT score over 21. Then I flunked out twice. I eventually did graduate with a degree that I never used, but it was with a 2.7 GPA. This is just to demonstrate how awful I was at note-taking, studying, anything involving recording, and retaining information of the academic persuasion. Then I decided I was really tired of living below the line of poverty and got a master's in science. This required being, at the very least, passable at recording and retaining academic information. This is where the copious color-coded pens came in, and the color-coded highlighters, and the color-coded sticky notes, and the color-coded accordion folders. I was finally able to properly record information in a way I could retain, which led to my appointment as research assistant, then contributions to multiple academic publications, and ultimately a dream job at the RD division of a certain computer company. Colored pens got me out of poverty and gave me the ability to help provide for my family. TLDR, I now work as a researcher at a computer company. I am now paid to study. I still have all my pens. Story 26, yup. Homeschooling some here. I use one set of color for my personal planner. Each person has their own color. Bills have one. Holidays and birthdays share one. Family and community events have their own. And finally, the animals have a color. School planning has another set for each subject. Story 27, I have a bag of scented markers and a bag of rainbow pens I keep in my office for when I attend work meetings. Also not a teacher, but I am a director of a facility that serves kids. Story 28, nurse here. 4 colored pens are an absolute must for my job to keep organized. On my assignment sheet, anything ordinary in black, code status in red. Things I need to do in blue, lab results in green, then I'm at peace. Story 29, wife did this as a kid, through high school, and became amped in college. But now she's a teacher and writes in different colors for a living. We're currently moving out of the country, and she can't part with pens she doesn't even use. She managed to smuggle them in her carry-on bag. Send help. Story 30, 22 in university, and this year I'm trying to really improve my studying and note-taking outside of lectures, so I decided to do 3 color notes with red, blue, and black pens because all of the girls I know take notes like that, and they all have much better GPAs than I do. Story 31, I graduated with my PhD. I still have a love of extremely neat notes with color coding and fonts and neatly drawn graphs. My licensing exam study binder was a thing of beauty, and I actually wound up making a PowerPoint presentation for last year's residents on the exam and study tips, complete with several personalized memes. This brings me so much joy. I still have about 8 different colors of pens in my office, although now all my reports are typed and have to conform to a particular aesthetic, so I'm stuck. I do, however, now have a handmade stone pen courtesy of my father-in-law and a very cool fountain pen made from trimmed branches of a 100-year-old olive tree that my husband gifted me. So no more neat colors, but my love of excellent writing materials lives on. Story 32, I was exactly this girl. I had about 50 glittery colored gel pens, and for each school assignment, I would choose 5 random different ones to write and decorate my notebooks with. 20 years later, I'm a graphic designer and illustrator. I still love making things nice and colorful with cool typography. I basically did not change at all. I just have slightly better taste now. Story 33, not a girl, but in my business law class during undergrad, we were allowed to use our notes for the tests. It was much easier to color code everything, so I could find it quickly if I needed to reference it different colors for terms, cases, outcomes, etc. I've been unemployed for about 6 months. Story 34. I am in university now. Second year. I am a perfectionist, and taking notes this way makes me feel all kinds of things such as completeness, organization, perfectionism, and cleanliness. It also makes me think that Eve got my together. Turns out it helps with the motivation to study harder. And hey, I didn't get the GPA of 3.85 for nothing. Story 35. I've worked with them in various offices. They're extraordinary at organization. I appreciate their attention to detail. The hard part is understanding their system if the key is not readily available. Story 36. Yes, I actually carry a bag of different pens and markers with me. I also bullet journal, so they come in handy there. I am a teacher, so colors are part of the job. Story 37. One of the best and most organized software engineers I work with is like this. She has color-coded folders, physical and digital, and basically her whole professional life seems color-coded. It's intriguing and a bit over my head, really. Story 38. AM, a guy, not a girl. And this is going to sound really weird. I have 12 different colored pens I use, and I change to a different one every month. So at a glance, I can figure out when the year I wrote the thing. I'm also the only one that uses colors in the office, so I can quickly identify my work. I keep the pens consistent through the years, so while I can't tell you what year, I can tell you the month, edit, all internal stuff, notes, memos, draft things, and paper calcs. No requirements legal or otherwise for special types of ink for documents or anything. Story 39. Not a girl, but a guy. I used to love gel pens. I currently work in a lab and limit myself to black, blue, teal, and magenta along with a highlighter and Sharpie. Sometimes you have to grow up. Story 40. I'm a graphic designer now. I used and still use different colors for two main reasons. One, easy scan and logic. Using multiple colors help me scan my notes text much faster. I remember in school I used pink for titles, purple for subtitles, green for examples, pencil for notes, red for important remarks. If I needed to find the example for lesson 5, ID, just look for the green. To visual memory, I remember when I had history exams where I needed to memorize big chunks of data. I used to color code my paragraphs so that if I get stuck in exam, I try to remember the color of that lesson, and that helps me remember the words. In summary, using colors in my text was basically for typographic hierarchy, which is a big part of my work now. Knowing what information to bold, underline, change color. Story 41. I never did this in school, but now I do it at work every day. For my job, I manage tasks for several client organizations, and color coding them makes it much easier to remember when a task is due and for whom when I write out my checklist for the day. I also color code my emails and meetings with different flags, so I can easily filter on one color to focus on one client at a time. Story 42. High up at a software company and still using my colored pens. Color use is always intentional. For example, I might use black for the main color and red for keywords or new items. If I'm writing pseudocode, you'll use colors to note things like objects, attributes, or processes. If I'm in a meeting with the boss, I'm using different colors for different subjects. We're discussing marketing, product, sales, etc. I'm a big note taker and I like pen to paper, Rocketbooks, FTW. Story 43. My notes are all pink. They're pretty organized too. I try to rewrite them at home so they're more legible, but sometimes that can be too time-consuming. So I type them sometimes using pink text color to organize the definition words from the rest of the bullets and topics. It helps me out a lot to have it all colored out like that. Yes, I'm studying to be a teacher, lol. Story 44. Hey, I did that. I was that girl up until I was 16 or something. Then I went into secondary school, burned out and depressed from all the pressure being a good girl came with. School stressed me out to the point that it made me physically sick. In secondary school, I started skipping class, so I to straight as and relaxed instead. Apparently, that made me go from good girl to cool girl, and I made tons of friends, got over my social anxiety, and had a lot of fun. And not screw by any means, I graduated with good grades, and after I finished enjoying my gap year, I'm going to university for a computer engineering degree. Story 45. Yes, I am, and yes, I do. I would also write important things in margins or right side and box it in or doodle around it. It helped me recall those important things during test time or when I'm away from my notes in a meeting and need to recall details. I'm a PM in IT and still use colors. I still jot down handwritten notes now, although not as often, but use color in spreadsheets. I'm tracking so many details, it's my way of recalling them. Story 46. Lecturer at top university and manage parts of emergency responses for the UN. I still use all the colors, but now I use them with a Rocketbook. Best work-related purchase ever. Having things color-coded not only helps with recall and quickly scanning often quite lengthy and complex notes, but also makes me happy, and when I'm doing something that requires an element of mathematical modeling, it helps me quickly check for significant errors. Story 47, I don't use 900 colors anymore for notes, but I taught myself calligraphy several years ago and have done work for several weddings and Christmas, etc. All this on the side, I have a desk job where I use some fun pens, but I have mostly abandoned using multiple colors for anything for the sake of time. I still have pretty colored pens and can't resist getting any cool gelly rolls. I'm also a little bit of fountain pen nerd. Story 48, I now have the best job ever. Designing for that pen company, I feel encouraged to use all the colors and pen styles when making my to-do lists. I still get giddy hearing about new pens and colors when they are released. You can never have enough pens. Story 49, I'm a professional failure whom it took until age 19 to get an ADHD diagnosis because no one had the epiphany that fancifying my notes amongst other clear signs was a coping mechanism because class was largely understimulating to my dopamine-deprived brain. I stopped using so many colored pens. To write, I kind of switched that for line thickness and font size, but I still use different pastel markers and page flags to mark stuff up to no end. Seriously. How can teachers constantly complain about a student taking more care in how their notes look than actually paying attention without ever considering why that may be? Grinds my gears. Story 50, I'm a master hair colorist now. I spent all those years doodling rainbow hair to one day finally creating the real thing minus the cool glitter effect of my gel pens. Story 51, I'm not even a girl anymore, and the closest I get to using 50 different pens is when I'm allowed to color code a spreadsheet. I think I've reached peak adult. Story 52, I work in a lab now. My notes are detailed, easy to understand, and aesthetically pleasing. I keep a small bundle of emergency color gel pens in my purse at all times. Story 53, female who loves colored pens here. My colorful writing helped a lot through my engineering prelim degree because I'm a big visual leaner, so I could color code based on different equations, theories, or stuff I needed to memorize, etc. It sounds silly, but during tests, I could see my writing based on the color and how it was organized on the papers I wrote out to study. Now I work as a full-time engineer, and I still have all my colorful pens for any note-taking, and my coworkers make fun of my colorful spreadsheets. Ironically, I dress in all black or dark muted colors like 90 of the time. So you would know I like colorful organizing until you saw my notes. Story 54 and 43 still use multiple colors of pens, including sparkly gel pens for any and all notes and doodles. I'm a graphic designer, so my trade definitely fits the multitude of colors. However, I currently work for a biotech company. My tasks include some QC-type lab tech work. There's a fair amount of waiting on scans involved. That task, I doodle on the QC sheets in a rainbow of colors. I work with a bunch of scientists, so my QC sheets definitely stand out. Story 55, I now work in IT, and I still use different colors for everything, different colored SSH screens to tell which server I'm on, or what I'm working on, different colored pens to manage who is working on what easily, make a color dot by their name instead of writing their name, different colors for test versus prod to ensure I don't accidentally RM prod. I just think in different colors. I can quickly scan for what I'm really looking for. Story 56, not a girl, but I use 4 to 5 different colors to denote diff things in my notes, and also to show where one note stops and another star cause my handwriting is kind of crappy. I just started doing it in my first clinical semester of nursing school, and honestly, it's really helpful. Story 57, I still use all 500 of my pens, and my notes look amazing. I color code my different classes with different color schemes and rewrite my notes to make them neater and actually fulfill all the aspects of my color codes. But as I enter the second half of my JR year in college, studying forensic science and a dual minor in criminology and statistics, I have a 3.97 GPA, and I can guarantee I would not have that without my colorful system. Story 58, so I had 50 different gel pens at all times to use during my bio and chem classes. I found the colors useful, especially for memorizing complex chemical reactions that had multiple moving parts, or for complex signaling pathways that had several different ligands and receptors whose names were just a series of numbers and letters. Using them during class was a little obnoxious, and I definitely used them all the time during my study sessions or pre-lecture reviews, in which I took notes on material from the books. I also used them to take notes on longer papers from journals, for which I developed a color-coded system to organize my thoughts on the material, i.e. blue for general notes, pink for questions, red for what I would have done although I'm no longer in school. Anytime I require to dive back into the awesome world of biology, I do the same thing. When I read papers on my own free time, I still use them to take notes. I'm currently interviewing for jobs in my field, and when I get one, I will have my colored pens. Everybody learns and memorizes differently, but I found my use of color as visual learner helped me memorize and understand material so much more than before when I would just write and do anything in black ink. During class discussions and exams, I could actually recall the exact section of my notes I was being asked about by remembering the colors I used for that info. TLDR still in my field, still helping the gel ink pen companies make a profit. Story 59, not a girl, but I am autistic. Colors for notes helped me actually take notes and focus for the first time in high school. Unfortunately, school did not allow color note-taking, so I ended up in detention and isolation a lot. Thanks, educational system. Story 60, am a soon-to-be speech-language pathologist. I have biowad ADD. If I don't take my meds, I cannot even watch a television show without losing focus. Color-coding my notes like that is one of the reasons I definitely exceeded the expectations of the original doctor who diagnosed me at age 9. He told my parents to not expect much from me in terms of academic achievement. Well, approximately 20 years later, I not only graduated high school, but I have a BA Hons, am soon to get my MSc CELP, and am considering going for a PhD, all in the pursuit of helping the other kids that have been told they have no potential or will fail. I am very fortunate that I had some other professionals, including my mother, who is an SLP who believed in me and refused to take the no potential as an answer, teach us differently, because we learn differently, give us strategies and supports while we learn to use the strategies, and watch us soar. But back to the notes. They help me organize my thoughts, connect like ideas content across pages, and generally just internalize the material. It was after taking extensive in-class pencil notes, though, so much more forgiving for a squirrely gal like me. Story 61 and 22. The manager of a weight loss clinic still used 6 colors when taking notes, making schedules, writing on calendars, planners. I also color coordinate everything in the center. Story 62, I am a lawyer now and still use multiple colors in some of my handwritten notes for quick reference, but don't use it in emails or my formal written work. I also choose to use my color coding after meetings rather than during, as it would be distracting and would make my note-taking take longer on client time, which I don't want to do. It's interesting how our brains and memories can be unlocked using different study techniques. Story 63, well, I only use 10 colors, but I work as an engineer now. Sadly, there's not much need for colored pens in my job. I cope by meticulously color-coding the graphs. I make an Excel. Every once in a while, I need to interpret a process instrumentation diagram, and I get really excited to break out my highlighters and color-code everything. Story 64, I wasn't one of them, but now I am. I started taking notes in school. I noticed when I was using colors to highlight, underline, and mark important parts, one was able to learn better because I had this little bit of creativity in my notes, which kept my mind fresh. By the way, I studied computer science. Story 65, my biology teacher would always write everything in 10 different colors, would bring her own chalk. She told me that once she was writing something extremely complicated and important and asking the class to copy it, because it would be on the test, she finished writing everything. It looked beautiful, her masterpiece. Then she went to explain how important were the colors to this subject, and everyone should have that written in colors. Then, after my teacher finished her masterpiece, a student just says, I can't see the difference. I'm colorblind. He only saw everything in black and white. My teacher proceeded to make a special version for the kid, so he could understand it properly. My teacher was great. The guy is still, unsurprisingly, colorblind to this day. So, I guess that is where he is now. Story 66, I'm now an artist. Basically exactly where I was in school, but instead I sometimes get paid to draw, and yes, I do. Cute notebooks and colorful lists give me the illusion of having my life together. The art money is spent on more stationery. Story 67, well, personally, I ended up with a crippling stationery addiction later in life that has me hoarding highlighters and high-end fountain pens. I've recently hit an all-time low and have started importing products from Japan. Story 68, this is my thread. I love color-coding things. I do it for notes for class, my schedule, everything. I honestly cannot go back through my notes without it because it helps me identify main headings and subheadings. Sometimes I use it in Word docs too. And don't even get me started on spreadsheets. I find making study guides, spreadsheets, whatever neat and color-coded therapeutic. I know I'm a big old nerd. Anyway, hey, race a sample of my schedule. This is messier than usual. Some notes and a nomological net I had to do for an assignment. Story 69, I am currently studying neuroscience at Pitt, and I am a junior. I don't remember why I started color-code my notes. I just always have in high school and college. In my opinion, it's a great way to index notes so that when you're going back when studying for exams, you can easily find topics, definitions, diagrams. It also makes it really easy for other people to use your notes. I tend to let my friends use my old notes if they're taking those classes. I will say that it can be time-consuming, but at least for me, I feel like I actually process the information, so when I study, it's easier to remember certain things. I would recommend color coding to anyone who is feeling disorganized with their notes. My main tip is to keep the colors consistent. That way your brain fully associates the color with that specific thing. For example, in ALL, my notes definitions are green. Story 70, I take really ugly fast notes in a cheap notebook during class, and then transcribe them into neat organized Z color-coded notes when I get home, and that's what I use to study. I'm still in school, but I'm hoping to someday be a lawyer. I hope my organizational skills help me, and yes, I will always own a 24-pack of colored gel pens. Story 71, in an internship at a custody center for people who are caught in flagrante delictum. I switched from taking notes in 50 colors to taking notes with different fonts and having a different color scheme for each subject. Once you go note supply crazy, you can never go back to note supply normal. Story 72, I picked up the habit in college. Engineering design problems have lots of different forces, need to show a different color of each direction type of force. Story 73, I had 2 colored pen systems, one for notes and one for my planner. I also had 2 sets of colored pens, different brands for each system. When I was in college, I used a different color pen on the month view for every class, personal stuff, and appointments. ID, use the daily page to journal in the color that matched my mood. It served several purposes. I could keep up with short journal entries. I had a color-coded record of my mood health for my doc, and the colors made me happy. LOL for notes. ID, alternate through the rainbow each day of class. It helped me study because ID associate certain information with the color I wrote them in. ID make flashcards out of construction paper the same color too. Writing this out makes me sound like I'm crazy, but my stuff is always super organized and neat. I'm a teacher now. Before that, I worked in an archaeology lab, and for both jobs, my crazy organization was helpful. I get how it can be irritating to others, but it works for me. It helps me get my work done. I even color code the sticky notes on my computer. Story 74, I still have all the colors, but now I use only 2 colors, usually shades of each other, as something like regular text and bold text to read it more easily.